Chris. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Telford Wrekin Council's first virtual cabinet meeting. Thank you for joining us. We've got a packed agenda items to go through, and I'll ask each individual cabinet member to present their reports in due course. But before we do that, I just wanted to take this opportunity just to run through with some information following what has been a significantly challenging time for us as a council, but also for you, the community. And I have a PowerPoint presentation I want to share with you, just to cover some of the actions that we've taken over the last few weeks. Firstly, I want to say a big thank you to all of our staff, all of the key workers, the people within the NHS, and also people within care, because they have simply been amazing over the last few weeks. Right at the start of all of this, though, clearly, we need to remember those people who have lost their lives. 107 people here in Telford and Wrekin have died in all settlement action. To support our staff and our contractors as much as we can, and to be a good partner locally, regionally and nationally. Since the start of the pandemic then, we've done all that we can. That's the question that we've asked ourselves each and every day. What can we do to help our residents, our businesses, our communities and our partners? All at the same time, making sure that our borough keeps on moving and the services that we operate on a day-to-day bread and butter basis continue. So just going through some of these headings, helping our residents, what have we done? We've helped 1 in 5 borough households directly over this past few weeks through our fantastic army of volunteers, whether that be helping residents access food and shopping before the shielding operation came in from government, and also filling in the gaps, as I said previously. Many people who were not eligible for shielding have been supported by us, the council. Seeking medication, taking dogs for a walk, keeping touch calls, and also crisis payments. And in fact, we've done over 1,000 calls each week over the last few months. And again, I want to say a massive thank you to all those people who have been involved in this fantastic community effort. The emails I've received directly from residents has just been amazing. The difference that this has made has just been just so positive. 10,500 people, 10,500 households, I should say, much more people have been benefited from the 2-month council tax holiday. We were the first council in the country to offer this right at the beginning of this crisis. Many other councils then followed our lead, and more importantly than that, of course, that has made a cash flow benefit to many people who needed it at the time. And that absolutely has helped to ease the financial impact of the pandemic. We've also made sure that we've offered flexible payment plans for those people hit by COVID, and that's been something that's been supported too. And we've also, well before this pandemic, but it's come in really handy, we've bolstered the council tax support scheme, which helps those people who have either lost their job or have had their hours reduced or their pay reduced. And those people on the furlough scheme, in many cases, have either had their hours reduced or their pay reduced. But we do know that this challenge will become even more difficult over the next few months. We've already seen a 79% increase in universal credit and job seekers allowance claims from March to April alone. 79% increase. And we do know, and according to the government, they expect a further huge increase in benefit claimants as the furlough scheme is withdrawn into the next couple of months and into October. Again, right at the start of this, we knew that those kids on free school meals would not get a free school meal whilst the national scheme, the national voucher scheme, was being developed. So we didn't stand by and watch. Together with our community, our fantastic council officers, we delivered 52,000 free school meals over the first couple of weeks of this crisis. And recognising the impact upon our children in our borough, we've rolled forward and brought forward rather the breakfast scheme, which will now be delivered into the wards with the highest number of free school meal claimants. And we want to work with partners to further expand that scheme going forward. We've also been trying to keep young people safe. And we do know right across the country, and Telford Wrekin is no exception in this, that the number of referrals to our safeguarding teams in respect of children has plummeted. And therefore we ran a campaign, and we continue to run that campaign, Don't Sit in Silence. Please, if you are concerned about a child or a young person or a vulnerable person, please do contact us and the police. And as I say, this has not just been a community, a council effort. This very much has been a community effort. 1,147 volunteers recruited, and that has been absolutely amazing. And those volunteers have made Telford and Wrekin a better place to live and to work. So thank you so much to each and every one of you. We've tried to keep our residents updated. Our social media posts have been followed in their thousands. We've held virtual Q&A sessions that I've held and others have held too, with more to come. But we've also written to every single household. 78,000 households were written to in March and again in May, keeping our residents up to date and explaining what support is available and how to access that support. And I'm really, really proud of the feedback that I've been having from residents about not just our traditional forms of contact, but also the digital messaging that we've been placing out together with our emails and daily videos. So a big thumbs up to, again, our team for that. Helping our borough businesses. As a Labour administration, we know that without businesses, without a healthy private sector, there aren't healthy private sector jobs and an economy that we want to be proud about. So helping our borough businesses was absolutely central to what we wanted to do. We've had 5,100 business engagements. That's via phone, via virtual meetings, supporting businesses with advice and assistance, the ability to access support and grants. All the businesses in the borough were written to in March and June, detailing the support that was available. We've been able to issue £28.5 million of grant, this grant from government, and we were one of the amongst the quickest councils in England to get that money out of the bank accounts of the council into the bank accounts of businesses locally, and that's made a big difference. And again, I've received many emails from businesses thanking us for the way in which we've dealt with that. And I would like to say thank you to our teams who have worked literally 7 days a week around the clock to get those business grants out of the door. We've provided £30 million in business rate relief, and that's been a big helpline to businesses too. And we noticed very early on that the government support around the first phase of business support, there were many businesses falling between the cracks. And that's why we, together with local businesses and other councils, lobbied the government for further discretionary business grant schemes funding. And I'm delighted to say that we will, by the end of this week, would have applied the total 100% money that we have available for this scheme from government to local businesses, and that money will be out the door early next week as well, and businesses will be notified of the outcome if they haven't already. So again, a big thank you to our teams. Helping our communities and partners, we knew right from the start that actually our knowledge of Telford and Wrekin, our ability to work with our residents, would be much more powerful and a better offer if we worked with our community groups. And that's why we've been helping and working with 80 community groups every day, from the Interfaith Council chaired by Raj Mehta to parish and town councils to support groups. We've been really working hand in glove with those community groups so that we could help our community. And once again, from all of us here at Telford Wrekin, I want to say a massive thank you to those community groups that have helped us over the last few months. We also knew right at the beginning of all this that there would be a massive expansion of demand, particularly for our food banks, and that's why we were able very quickly to grant emergency funding to our food banks, to charities tackling homelessness, and organisations providing mental health and domestic abuse support. We know that on the homelessness front, that those people on the streets at the time were vulnerable to coronavirus themselves, and they were also a vulnerable person in regards to spreading the coronavirus to others. And that's why working with our fantastic homelessness charities and other private sector organisations, we've been able to get people off the street. And let's all hope that there is no return to street sleeping. The ability for us to do that is there if the government back it up with resources and political will. We also know that these lockdown times have been significantly difficult for many who either have mental health problems or have developed mental ill health over the last few months. And that's why we've tried to work with our organisations and provided more money to our organisations on top of their core funding. Domestic abuse clearly has been an issue, and we've seen that from right across the country. And we've worked with our policing colleagues in order to try and support those people who find themselves in that position. And let me be very clear to any woman or indeed man who is finding themselves in a domestic abuse position, that we will work with you to get you to a place of safety. We've also raised over £20,000 so far for our Kindle Kindness funding campaign. Now, this was an idea that came about from Councillor Gemma Offland and Councillor Kelly Middleton, who recognised that at the PRH hospital and within care homes, because of the limitations upon visiting, that those places were becoming very lonely places indeed. And that's why we raised this money. We want to raise more. We've delivered over 190 tablet devices to the hospital and care homes and to the most vulnerable people. And if you want to see the pictures of how this has made a big difference, then please look at our council social media, because the difference has been just superb. We aim to get up to 275 devices. And if you haven't already donated, or you have donated but want to donate some more, then please do. We've immediately recognised the huge demand upon care homes, and therefore we applied, again, one of the first councils in England to do this, an emergency 10% uplift to our care home payments. Now, this was in addition and earlier than the government funding, although the government funding, of course, absolutely welcome. But that has made a big difference to our care homes and our care home providers, and also has made some choices that other areas of the country have had to make. We haven't had to make those difficult choices because of this and others. So a big shout out, I think, to all of those who are caring for our most vulnerable elderly people, but also adults and children too. PPE has been a massive issue right across the country, and remains so today. I was on a call at 8:45 this morning with the health system, and they still talk about the fact that the PPE, particularly masks, are in short supply. We've delivered 250 pieces of PPE to our residential care sectors. Now, that is not just the PPE sourced via the centre, but we very proactively as a council went out and we bought PPE ourselves to get it into the system, because that was the right thing to do for our council, our council community, together with our care home and hospital communities. We've also helped fund PPE for schools. It was right at the beginning of the time when schools were looking to do a more phased opening, that we found out that schools were expected to get their own PPE, and that caused, on top of all the other stress and concern that schools were facing at the time, was an insurmountable task. And that's why we very early on again agreed to fund PPE so that schools could open on the first day back that they wanted to, when it was safe to do so. And I would like to say a massive thank you to our town and parish councils, who have just been first class in all of this. They have worked hand in glove with us as a borough council, and without town and parish councils, we wouldn't have been able to do some of the things that we've done. And they've worked with us to safely reopen high streets and district centres, and so much more. I'd like to thank all those members and clerks for their hard work. And we've also had to continue our services. We've, unlike many councils across England, we have not reduced our curbside collections. We didn't suspend at all at any point the curbside rubbish collection, like most councils did. And not only that, we saw record numbers of green waste and recycling collections taking place, because clearly, whilst people were locked down at home, they were taking an opportunity to improve their garden, and that caused its own challenge for us. We were among the first councils to reopen our HRC sites, and our highways and environmental services have continued under great demand from our residents, who have either through their one day walk, one walk a day, or now even more exercise, have put some significant demand on our local fantastic green spaces. It's a nice problem to have. And we want to continue to protect, care and invest to create a better borough. That's what our manifesto said in May 2019 when we were elected, and that is at the heart of everything that we do. Everything we do, we ask, is it protecting, is it caring, is it investing in our borough? And we know that those three words are going to be more important than ever going forward as we look at the challenges ahead. We have a funding gap of £19 million. That's after you've taken the £10 million from government. So £19 million this financial year is the challenge that we see before us. And I do hope that all of those MPs and government ministers who clapped on a Thursday for care workers and our council office staff will make sure that the local government is invested in, so that we can deliver for our communities, whether that be the track, trace and isolate programme, whether that be regeneration, creating jobs, getting businesses in, health and wellbeing, adult social care, safeguarding children, or whatever agenda we deliver for our community. We're also seeing huge, as I've already mentioned, losses in business rate income as businesses find it more difficult to pay bills, and also, as I've already mentioned, the increased job losses in the community. But despite those challenges, we've had a fantastic response here in Telford Wrekin to a dire situation, and I'm proud of every council worker, every member of our community, our NHS, our key workers, and also a big thank you to the senior management team and the cabinet, who have literally worked around the clock with me 7 days a week over the last few months. So thank you very much for allowing me to do that. We'll go on to the agenda now. Just bear with me while I get that. So item 1 is apology for absence. I don't think we have any apologies. Is that right?
Thank you, Chair. No apologies received. Just to note that Councillor Tomlinson is appearing as Councillor Karen Tomlinson, but I can confirm it is Councillor Bill Tomlinson in attendance.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Are there any? No. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are they moved?
Move them.
Thank you. I shall sign those at the first available opportunity. Item 4 then is the Service and Financial Planning Report. Councillor Ray Evans.
Thank you, Chair. 2019-20 was a challenging year financially. We started with a budget that was already under pressure after 10 years of national austerity, which has seen the Council deliver 123 million ongoing annual budget savings in the light of significant cuts to government grants, whilst at the same time demand for services such as adult social care and children's safeguarding have been increasing. In addition, in February we had the storm damage and serious flooding in Ironbridge, and in March the current pandemic started. In spite of all of these challenges and the areas of significant pressures arising from increased demand for services, the Council has continued to demonstrate robust financial management and ended the year in a positive. As a reminder, last year's gross revenue budget was 398 million and the net was 121 million. After a limited number of transfers to reserves were made, I'm pleased to be able to inform Cabinet that the revenue outturn position for 1920 is within budget by £146,000. This performance doesn't just happen. It's the result of a concerted effort by Cabinet members and budget holders from across the Council, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone concerned. Looking at some of the detail, Cabinet may wish to note that some positive variations last year, which included a benefit of 3.8 management, the majority of which relates to benefits from low interest rates for short-term borrowing, and the Council's active Treasury management strategy of keeping the majority of new borrowings very short-term. A benefit of 800,000 from vacancy management across all services was achieved. 500,000 one-off benefits relating to the final profit share arrangements with TWS following the end of the contractual relationships. 400,000 benefit from an accounting adjustment to capitalise some costs charged to revenue benefits under the government's flexibility over the use of capital receipts. That achievement of plan reports considered by Cabinet during the year. The key areas of pressure during 19 were children's safeguarding and family support, which entered the year with a service overspend of 3.7 million, and adult social care, which ended the year with a service overspend of 2.6 million. 2019-20 was the 5th year of the operation of New Place Limited, which prepares its own accounts. Their unaudited accounts show an operating profit before taxation of 573,000, up from 492,000 on the previous year. Notably, the Council received a net benefit from New Place totalling just over 1.2 million during, compared with 1.2 million in 18-19. The position of each service delivery unit is summarised in the table in section 4.2 of the report. Service variances over 250,000 are highlighted in section 4.3, and other variances of over 50,000 are detailed in appendix 2. Section 4.5 deals with dedicated schools grants. Telford Wrekin in 1920, and the outturn position was a stable year. The input surplus, which to a small surplus of 20,000 brought forward at the start of the year, gives a year-end surplus of 120,000, which can be carried forward into this year's budget. Cabinet should note that in the context of the scale of the grant and the extreme pressure faced by many councils, this is a really good outcome. So well done to those involved. Section 5.3 proposes some transfers to reserves, which have been included in the outturn position. Section 6 summarises the capital programme position. Capital expenditure ended the year at just under 42 million, representing a significant investment in our borough by the council. There are some new approvals environments put forward for approval, which are detailed in Appendix 4. And finally, Section 7 provides some more information on New Place. So in summary, therefore, we ended last year in a good place, despite a number of exceptional challenges. However, we now clearly face the biggest challenges the Council has ever seen in responding to the effects of the pandemic. It's clear that the additional pressures that we face from, and for example, the increased cost of care services, the loss of income from closing our leisure service, etc., is not covered by the additional funding offered by the government. We're actively working to refine our assessment of the position we face this year, and we'll bring a financial management report to the next Cabinet, and we'll continue to lobby government along with the LGA for additional funding. Cabinet, can I ask that you accept the recommendations of the report before you?
Thank you, Ray. Is that seconded?
Second it.
Thank you, Richard. Ray, there's a few problems with the sound, so it might be helpful if you could maybe just turn your video off for a little bit. That might help your bandwidth, I'm told. Are there any questions from Cabinet members? Councillor Andy Burford.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to emphasise one or two of the points that Councillor Evans has been making, really. I mean, the fact that we had an overspend on adult social care of 2.6 million is indicative of the kind of pressures that social care nationally is under at the moment. That is set to get to increase. Every authority knows that. The demography of this country is changing. The demands are increasing all the time. We have been waiting for years, literally years, for a plan for adult social care from this government. We are still waiting. We are still waiting too for adequate resources to address those needs at local level. All that has been emphasised and shown even more by the pandemic in terms of our needs. Despite that, as a council, we have protected adult social care. We are investing nearly an extra 4 million in the coming year, so that we try to keep pace with the demands that we've got. This cannot go on though. We do need that settlement, which enables us to deliver the citizens of this borough the service that they continue to demand and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy Burford. Shirley Reynolds.
Thank you, Leader. It is very, very worrying how the funding shortfall might affect us moving forward. We've always continued to invest in our borough, and this is now becoming much more difficult. On a personal basis, I want to thank the administration for the valued investment in children's services. That investment has made such a difference to our children's lives, making up for the great shortfall of funds from the government. It's enabled us to provide an outstanding children's service, and my portfolio area is just one area of great pressure which this administration supports via its investment strategy. On behalf of all the children of Telford and Wrekin, I want to thank you for your foresight and support.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Richard Overton.
Thank you, Sean. I'd like to thank Councillor Ray Evans for that report, and she did say how much we'd significantly invested in our borough over the last 12 months. And I know that we put in our budget before the COVID pandemic came, significant investment to continue. I'm just hoping that government realises their shortcomings in funding councils through the pandemic, and that we get that investment back so we can continue to create a better borough, because people have significantly praised the council on how we've invested in this town, and we want that to continue. So, you know, it's linking your presentation in with the shortfall, but also recognising the investment that we have done in this town, and we would need that to continue. So we need the government to fill that funding gap.
Thank you, Councillor Overton. Before I go to the opposition leaders, any other comments from Cabinet members? No? Okay. Andrew, I'll come to you.
All right, thank you, Sean. So where to start, I suppose. We would be forgiven, I think, for thinking that the gods had deserted us at this awful time. First we had a flooding on a biblical scale, and now the coronavirus. And I'd certainly like to echo the thoughts that you've given to those that have lost their lives to this terrible disease. 107 people who've died in the borough. It's a lot of families, and it's a lot of grieving. I think we should also give thought to those that have successfully fought this disease as well. It must have been an extremely worrying period for loved ones. But I'm quite surprised that the report indicates that no one planned reserves, use of reserves so far. And I think that's something to the testament to the unparalleled financial support given to this local authority and members of this community by the government. The amount, the furloughing scheme that was announced very quickly, and the support to businesses, I think, has been very good. I will also pay tribute to the way that the council has distributed the funding, certainly to businesses as well. It was much needed, it was vital that that was done. However, the impact on 2021 remains uncertain, and we will all see where it leads. I have to say, although the £0.4 million support for unemployment initiatives is certainly welcome, I fear that that's not going to be enough to deal with all the pressures that are waiting for us around the corner. Now, Andy's touched on the saga of overspending on children's safeguarding, and of course there's adult social care. Now, that has to be addressed. Despite several council cost improvement plans, which continue as ever to be put in place and monitored, social care over expenditure from initial budget calculations continues on its merry way unabated. Look, we should be realistic around costs, which should be reflected in future budget predictions, and not this ongoing charade of overspends, but yet we have another cunning campaign. We ought to be realistic of what it's actually going to cost us, so I think that will help us plan a little better. Now, Andy, I was disappointed with you about the social care green paper. I was looking forward to that. It's something, social care spending has not been addressed properly by successive governments. Although this one has promised that this would be done, obviously that's going to be put on the back burner, I fear, because of the COVID pandemic. If I can move on quickly to single status, the 12 million pot that we have there, we're now talking about spending 3 million out of that. We've been, as a group, continually told that only using £1 million was prudent. So I'd like to know exactly what advice has changed around this, and why we're now considering it's safe to spend £3 million of that. Now, I get the arguments about it's raining and we need to fix the roof, but that's a fundamental change in financial advice. Look, you've been in power for 9 years so far, you still haven't dealt with single status, and the £12 million, or soon to go down to £8 million of public money that is just sitting there and doing absolutely nothing. Interest rates are low. This issue needs to be sorted once and for all. If I can just, I'm assuming Ken Park is here.
If you could bring your comments to an end, Andrew, I'm just conscious that there are other members who want to come in, please.
It was just a quick one, if I could, about usable reserves and balances. And the report's saying 5.25 million or so. Could we have the figure, the exact figure, or a rough figure, for usable reserves and balances, so we can see what the local authority is holding at the moment? Thank you.
Councillor Tomlinson.
Thank you, Leader. I also wish to give my condolences to those families that have lost 107 people that have passed away, and all those affected by the virus. I also want to applaud the work of the council and the many people in the community. This pandemic has brought sometimes particularly the best out of people, really, in terms of the help they've given freely and the bravery of people putting themselves on the line where they could come to self-harm in trying to help others. So my heart and thank goes out to all those people. With regard to finances, we need greater certainty from the government so that local authorities can plan. The pandemic, if it's shown nothing else, is the vital role that a local authority has in supporting particularly the most vulnerable in our community. And the two big areas that we have to pay out as a local authority, which people may not think of, they always think of the local authority emptying the bins, which is vital, but the two largest parts are looking after children and looking after adults. And these two areas of costs within our authority and all authorities up and down the country have grown, and it's almost beyond local authorities' means and will be in the future to simply fund those from the council tax that we get from the local community. It needs government investment if we're going to properly support those people. So I agree with both Andrew, I agree with all you really, that we need a proper funding basis for those two services going forward, which then defines the amount of funding each local authority should get. The pandemic has given great uncertainty to a local authority, knowing will all the additional costs that we've had to incur be paid for by government. I echo what Andrew said, it's unprecedented the amount of money that the government has put in to support for people, but we still need to make sure that local authorities can exist. There are some local authorities up and down this country, thankfully not ours, that are teetering on the edge. They literally are teetering on the edge, and people won't really appreciate this, just how much it has put them on the edge. The government has got to bite the bullet and sit down carefully and calmly, work with local authorities and work out a funding plan that's sustainable for the future. And I just hope that our MPs can back this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Just before I bring Lee, I think Lee indicated he wanted to come in, and then to Ray. Can I just sort of pick up some of the points made by the group leaders? The first point is that there is a £19 million in-year black hole in the finances of this council, and that is in line completely with every other council in the country. Every single council in the country. The Conservative-led Local Government Association puts the figure nationally at £10 billion. So I'm surprised not to hear more support in regards to getting the government to close that £19 million black hole, because if it isn't closed this financial year, that will see more council tax rises, that will see more service reductions, that will put people's lives and livelihoods at risk. And we need to make sure that we don't cut the services that people need the most, and also reduce services. I also think it's a little bit of a shame, really, that the government over the last 10 years have told councils to stop relying on government grant. Go out there and raise your own income. In fact, we've been goaded locally by Conservatives that we were not doing enough on this agenda, that we were too dependent on government grant. Well, we did that through New Place and through Leisure and through other initiatives, and that because of this pandemic, that income has dried up, and now therefore we have a double whammy. We have not underfunding historically before this pandemic on things like adult social care and safeguarding children, then the pandemic in terms of the increased costs, and then also the lost income. And we do need to come together, all political parties on this council, members of Parliament. Let's join the Conservative-led Local Government Association to lobby for fairer and better funding, because otherwise the consequences are quite appalling. The other thing I'd like to say is that this report deals with March of up to March of this year. So the true extent of the pandemic hadn't been realised in regards to the time that this report was covered. And I do think it's a little bit disingenuous of Andrew Eade to talk about adult social care. We know has happened in adult social care during this pandemic. They've needed significant support and significant extra assistance. And if we didn't do that during this time and before this time, then our adult social care market would be on the floor. And that's I'm a bit surprised by the position that was taken there. And then just finally on single status, we are damned if we do, and we're damned if we don't. There's a pot of money there that's available. We've used some of it as an emergency measure to ease cash flow, so that we can make sure that this support can get through the door, and we're being attacked. And I can bet my bottom dollar that if we didn't use that funding, we would have been attacked for not using it. So I think there needs to be a little bit of a principle in terms of the opposition on this point. And to say we haven't done anything on single status over the last few years is not to understand the significant restructures that we've done over the last few years to iron out some of the unfairness around single status. So again, I'm a little bit surprised by that area of attack. Lee Cart, I think you wanted to come in.
Yeah, and you've picked up some of it, Sean. I hope my internet connection isn't patchy. I'd just like, you're quite right in pointing out about this report presents a period in time before COVID, actually. And what it reflects is a Labour authority that has managed the cuts and the austerity that we'd had put upon us for 10 years really, really well. We diversified, we generated money from external sources, from commercial income, from investments, very wise and smart investments, because we had to. We were forced to by the government. So it's a really good reflection on the Labour authority. It's important not to conflate that with what will happen next and the next report that Councillor Evans will bring. And let me tell you that everything in that report, every downturn in that report is on the government. It's on the government refusing to do whatever it takes. Now, Councillor Reid picked up about adults and children's in particular. That is actually what doing whatever it takes looks like from a Labour authority. We've done whatever it takes to look after our old people and our young people in this borough and put in place outstanding services in respect of young people. That's whatever it takes looks like. What you will see coming forward, let's make this quite clear to the public of Telford and Wrekin, what you'll see coming forward in the next few months from this authority in terms of downturns, in terms of shortfalls of funding, is on the government refusing to do whatever it takes. You know, yesterday they tried to wrap themselves in a patriotic flag by chucking £1 million at painting a red, white and blue flag on a plane. Okay, proper patriots believe that real investment, proper investment, is into looking after young people, adults, providing leisure services, providing library service, providing all the services that our local authority needs. And I really hope they step up to the plate. I really hope they step up to the plate. It's and I obviously having an involvement in the majority of this report, or the year of this report. Just like to pay tribute to the officers again. Outstanding, and I know they've been outstanding in terms of their determination to work with us and support us as we look to navigate through the next period.
Thank you. I'll come to Councillor Ray Evans to conclude. Any conclusion remarks?
Thank you, Chair. No, I've got nothing significant to add to that, apart to say that I do have confidence in the financial approaches that we've taken in the past. They've been seen to be robust and demonstrated as such. And of course, things are going to be different in the future. We're going to have to look at things, and I've got confidence in the officers and the Cabinet in how we'll take those approaches. But the government are going to have to help us.
Thank you, Ray. That's been moved and seconded. I will take silence as agreement. Thank you. Councillor David Wright, if I can come to you, can we take, if we may, items 5 and 6 together, David? I know that they are linked, and after you've done your introductions, I'll come to Councillor Burford, who's co-sponsoring item 5.
We certainly can. Thank you, Leader. I will introduce the two housing reports together, as you say. Look, a decent place to live is the foundation on which people build their lives, and we all know that if you've got a good quality home, then your health, your employment prospects and your educational achievement benefits, and people have a happy family life when they've got a good quality home. And we've been doing a lot as a council on the housing agenda over recent years. Now, look, we are a focus for housing growth, and that does bring benefits to the borough. We're creating new homes, and we saw 1,200 homes built last year, 300 of those being affordable homes. We're providing jobs in construction through that activity, and we're strengthening our economy. But obviously that new housing brings challenges as well in terms of infrastructure, and it's important that we acknowledge that. Our Better Homes for All initiatives having an effect on the management and maintenance standards in the private rented sector. Obviously, a lot more property in the private rented sector now in the borough than there has been historically. And many landlords are joining our accreditation scheme, and we've licensed over 200 HMOs. And we're using enforcement powers, as Councillor Overton will be able to tell you, extensively too within the town. We've also seen significant growth in supported accommodation for vulnerable people, 7 new extra care schemes built in the borough over recent years, and the distribution of close to £500,000 of wellbeing grants last year alone, and over 300 people benefiting each year from disability facility grants. I'll talk a little bit more about the supported housing strategy shortly. In the last 12 weeks, as the leader has said, we've successfully housed a large number of rough sleepers in the town, the majority now in move-on accommodation, but we've also worked with over 200 people and families threatened with homelessness or rough sleeping, ensuring that they don't end up on the street. And we're committed to a policy of no return to rough sleeping, and we'll have more announcements on our homelessness initiatives in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We've also intervened directly in the housing market locally, as members will know. And through New Place, we've built over 400 homes for rent, including affordable homes and a number of adapted homes. And now we want to ramp up that activity, both in terms of general provision, but also in the numbers of affordable housing units that New Place is delivering. However, we know that financial difficulties, accessibility and the quality of existing homes, particularly in some of our housing estates, particularly in South Telford on some of the new town estates, is an area that we need to address. And our draft housing strategy has a series of proposals about how we focus in on those areas. Our population is growing and it's also ageing, and we need to accept that and acknowledge it and plan for it. And we have vulnerable people with health problems and disabilities that we need to cater for. We have to focus on care leavers, those seeking to escape domestic abuse, key workers, and young people who are trying to find their way onto the housing ladder or into rented homes for the first time. Throughout the strategy, both strategies, we're committed to addressing climate change. Indeed, that's a golden thread through our approach. So we've got to future-proof new homes that we're building, and we've also got to improve those that we already have. We've got to ensure that we adopt the best environmental standards in the borough. And the current COVID crisis has changed the way we live our lives, and we need to consider that also in terms of the design of new homes and the communities that we develop. So our strategy moving forward is not just about building houses, but building stronger and more resilient communities. And we have 3 broad objectives in our draft housing strategy. Firstly, to create sustainable, accessible, affordable and integrated communities. So we've launched a review of the local plan, as members will know, and we're using this to address the levels of affordable houses that we're building. We'll use this process also to look at accessibility, tenure choice, high design standards, and developing opportunities for innovation in the delivery of community-based housing and also self-build. Now, collaboration with our partners is key to this agenda, and we're committed to working particularly with housing associations locally to deliver the right mix of affordable homes. This includes social rented housing, specialist and supported accommodation. The second strand of our strategy is to make the best use of our existing homes. 80% of the homes that are with us now will be 80% of the homes that will be with us in 20 years' time have already been built. So we have a town where we're building new homes, but the majority of homes that we'll have in the longer term have obviously already been built, and the quality of those is significant. We have to make sure that their management and maintenance is of high quality, alongside us enabling new homes being built. So we'll support the redevelopment and improvement of existing homes, undertaking local housing surveys and creating a new focus on housing renewal, as I've already said, in the borough, starting with some of our earliest new town estates. Now, this won't be easy, but it's a key area that we have to look at, and we'll need government support to help us with this. We have huge potential in terms of economic growth, even though we've gone through a difficult COVID period, and we need government to work in partnership with us. So this strategy sets out plans to identify a series of housing target zones where we'll work with partners across services to create better homes and neighbourhoods and stronger communities. So this will enable us to take action to improve neighbourhoods, address things like fuel poverty, and work with residents to develop community-based approaches. We also want to use legislation as extensively as we can to tackle issues around poor private landlords, as I've already outlined. Thirdly, we want to provide homes to support and empower our most vulnerable people. And this means delivering more specialist and accessible homes and helping people with adaptations and new technology to sustain their homes. Look, it is still hard to believe that rough sleeping's with us, and we will, as I've said, be coming forward with a new strategy on rough sleeping in the coming weeks. We want to raise awareness around issues of homelessness, and we'll also be encouraging an approach called supporting by reporting, so that you let us know, if you're a member of the public, if you see issues around rough sleeping, not in order to be critical or hammer down on people who are homeless, but so that we can go out and help them. So supporting by reporting is going to be a key part of our strategy. We need government to help us to deliver these plans, and we also want to adopt what's called a housing first model, which will give people who face challenges in their lives the chance for a stable home and the support they need to rebuild their lives. Just quickly, in terms of the specialist housing strategy, we've got to make best use of our existing accommodation, so that's improving the housing that we already have, particularly mainstream housing, and ensuring that it's suitable for vulnerable people. We need a range of new build schemes, and this is one of the strategies that I think is unique to our borough. I'm not aware of any other council that's put the detailed work in that we have to generate a call to arms, if you like, for ourselves and other organisations to come forward and meet needs in terms of specialist accommodation over the next 10 years and going forward. And we also need to ensure that we give support and care services effectively so that we can promote independence and well-being. So this isn't just about building new homes, it's creating whole packages to support people in their lives. Now, we can't deliver these strategies alone. We need government to support us, housing associations, third sector partners, developers, parish and town councils, and local people. So what we're doing today is we're launching these strategies in draft form for consultation. We want to hear people's views throughout the summer and slightly beyond, and then we'll bring back further reports so we can firm up and confirm these strategies later in the year. And together we can ensure that people have a decent place to live right throughout Telford and Wrekin. Thank you.
Thank you, David Wright. Can I come to you, Andy Burford, in respect of the paper that you're co-sponsoring? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Wright's made some of the points I'd want to make around specialist and supported housing. I can't emphasise enough how important this strategy is to the citizens of our borough, particularly the most vulnerable. I mean, most people are aware of the kind of demographic changes that I referred to earlier that are happening in our society, including the huge expansion in the numbers of older people. The other change that is driving this strategy is the desire to support people in their own homes, to live independently. And the COVID-19 crisis has really emphasised just how important it is we get that support in the right place at the right time for people, and how dependent the system is on the council gripping that and having the means to support at that local level with our volunteers and with our communities. This, as David Wright said, there's a huge amount of work that's gone in conjunction with the housing LIN, as it's called, to create this strategy. We are ahead of the game here. We have an emerging plan to deal with the two imperatives that I talked about. It's work that has put us in front of many other local authorities, as David said. And it's work that will help us guide and steer the market of care providers to deliver what we need for our people in this borough. But above all, it's in line with this council's commitment to prioritise the people's well-being and independence. and to protect and develop social care. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. David, did I hear you move the recommendations in both reports?
Yes, sorry, Leader. I couldn't unmute myself there. Yes, I moved the recommendations in both reports.
I presume that's seconded by Andy Burford.
Yes, I'll second that.
That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Paul Watling.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Dave, I welcome both these reports and want to just talk a little bit about the process that has gone into our support for rough sleepers over this pandemic period as well, which the Leader spoke about in his introduction. That couldn't have been done without the partnerships we've developed over the years with community groups and our community and voluntary sector. And we have to acknowledge that this report on that housing approach needs that partnership going forward and needs that complete partnership. It's not about us giving out contracts to people. It's about us working together with people to actually find that funding from elsewhere as well. That's been ongoing. It's been sort of a strategy of this council for the last 10 years, certainly, to as a cooperative council to work alongside people and with people rather than above them. I welcome it. I welcome the reports and would want to say how important the strategy is for our future.
Thank you, Paul. Karen Healy.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I also welcome both reports. I think it's really important that we have that really clear strategy in terms of how we're going to meet our housing needs, and in particular, the needs for those who need specialist and supported accommodation. So I think it's really good that we're taking this very clear-sighted view and how we're going to work with our partners and with our communities to deliver the housing needs. I particularly welcome the making the best use of our existing homes, because quite often people do want to stay where they are. They're happy in their own home, but situations change. And I think it's just really good that we want to make the best use of existing homes, particularly around making improvements that so that homes are much more fuel efficient. Obviously, that has implications for the climate change agenda, but also reduces fuel poverty, which is a huge issue. And I think going forward will be an increasing issue, given the effects of the COVID pandemic on people's employment and ability to earn money. I also welcome the adaptations within the supported housing strategy for people to continue to stay in their own homes for as long as they can before they need to move into more supported accommodation, because your home is your castle, and I think that's absolutely the right thing to do, and also building on that wealth of volunteer support that we've garnered through this past sort of 3 months. To continue to support that, and that helps support people live in their own homes. So I think it's a really good package of measures that we're looking to achieve, and I welcome both reports and thank the officers and the cabinet members for their lead on this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Eileen, can I come to you?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I just wanted to say the same thing, really. Carolyn has touched on a lot of what I was going to say. I want to thank Councillor Wright for bringing this strategy forward, and everybody else that's been involved in putting it together. I think, we talk about housing, but these are homes, and this is one of the most important things that people can build on so many other aspects of their life if they've got an affordable, suitable home to live in. And I think it's just going to be something that will really benefit those most vulnerable people. So I welcome both strategies.
Thank you very much, Eileen. Richard Overton.
Thank you, Sean. I thank you, David and Andy, for these reports. I mean, I welcome both those reports. They show our commitment in relation to these two key elements in making our borough grow, but also support our residents as they get older. Having two elderly parents is key, that they want to stay in their own home. And they will, of course, link into other strategies, as Andy says, and Paul, like homelessness. As I said, the strategies will help us in discussions with developers and helping us with more adapted and supported homes in our borough, greener homes as well, and help us reach our carbon reduction approach and link into our climate change agenda, which is welcome. We all know good homes have good health, and staying in your own home as you get older helps people to stay independent and costs less than care packages as well. And that's why helping with adaptations or the number supported or adapted or even bungalows can help, and that's why the housing strategy is key in delivering that. As David said, through private sector rented housing is part and is key in helping us deliver housing demand, and our Better Homes for All and our landlord accreditation linked to HMO licence help us manage and support the private sector, and that's because we want good landlords, and you know, as we did last year with our Road Landlord Task Force, we will, you know, go against those people who treat treat people not well as tenants, and that's why the first banning order of the country was done by this council, because we are on the side of tenants, and you know that the housing mix has to be right, and both strategies will help us go forward and make us create a better borough.
Thank you, Richard. Can I just say I also welcome these two reports. I think it's so fundamental to everything we do as a council, because you can build homes where you want to build homes actually, but if you want people to come and live with them, it goes into every other agenda that we as a council care for. So our green spaces, we've protected more green spaces than at any point in this council's history. We've created more local nature reserves at any time in the last 25-30 years. We per person we have more open green spaces accessible than most areas of the country. We have good jobs, good employment prospects, we have good transport links. Clearly there's more we want to do, but I think that the fact that we have got so many people not only coming to Telford and Wrekin, but also young people increasingly now staying in Telford and Wrekin after they've finished education, coming back from university, is a really, really positive sign. And lots of other areas of the country, unfortunately, don't have that. And I think we should celebrate that, because we are a fantastic place to live and to work. I think, Bill, you just commented, you just wanted to come in. Sorry, I hadn't spotted you there until just now. Bill? Have you frozen, Bill? I think Bill's frozen. Andrew, can I come to you? Or
Yeah, okay, thanks, thanks, Sean. I welcome the reports that have been brought forward. I'm just slightly unclear about one thing that hasn't been mentioned, and it is that you're looking for direct intervention into care provision in the borough. I mean, there is a vehicle for doing that through New Place. Certainly, I will support specialist and supported accommodation. That is absolutely vital. As a community, we are judged on what we provide and how we look after vulnerable people. But there's something missing here. Whether you're working on plans to do that, I don't know. But I would urge that we look at that as a potential vehicle for helping, rather than trying to influence and work with partners, that we look at some sort of direct intervention. Now, I understand the financial pressures around that, but you know, with a will, everything has a way, and it has an answer. The other thing is the 10-year target on this. I think that's too long. We should be challenging officers on this to drive this ahead. It's an important issue, as you quite rightly pointed out, with demographics and everything else. But it is vital that we provide the right sort of support and care in the future for vulnerable people. Now, as I say, one or two of the levers to providing that we have at our fingertips as a local authority. And I would like to see some plans brought forward to actually consider that or look at the feasibility of doing it.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read the report, Andrew. It's in the report. And can I also welcome the fact that you now support New Place, because when we set it up, you voted against it. At the last election, you said you were going to set it off. So can I just say thank you?
Thank our position on that, Sean. Last time, it's an old.
Well, I know there's lots of U-turns taking place right now, but I hadn't spotted that one. So thanks for that. Bill, are you there?
I think I'm there.
Thank you, Bill. Over to you.
I think I'm there with the help of my lovely wife, obviously. It's women who sort all these major problems out. And in the name of a famous woman, Dorothy, who once said there is no place like home. So while I'm clicking my heels together, I'd just like to say that it is important. I think the most important thing that's been said is because what David said, 80%, you know, is current homes rather than new homes, and we do have to make sure people like to live where they currently are. I know we can be flexible, move them to other places. So I do welcome both of these strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That's been moved and it's been seconded. Again, I'll take silence as support on both reports if I can. Lovely, thank you. If I can move now on to item 7, which is the annual governance statement. Ray Evans. Sorry, Ray, I think you're muted. Which is the phrase of 2020, I'm sure. You're not working, Ray? Okay. Well, I think I potentially can.
Yeah.
There you are.
Sorry.
There you are. Brilliant. Thank
Somebody
you.
tried to come into the meeting. Thank you, Leader, and apologies for that. So, under the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015, the Council is required to produce an annual governance statement. The AGS and the Local Code of Good Governance outlines that the Council has a robust governance framework in place, but that it is continually reviewing procedures to maintain and demonstrate good corporate governance. This is supported by risk management and sound systems of internal control, which are paramount to these continuing and difficult financial constraints that we face. In 2019-20, annual governance statement sets out adherence to the Council's governance arrangements that operated during the period 1st of April 19 to the 31st of March 20, and measures the effectiveness of them. All service delivery managers have been sent a list of questions regarding the governance arrangements in their areas. Their responses have been forwarded to the directors for review, and then the relevant executive directors for final sign-off. As a result, Audit have collated these responses and have produced the action plan which is attached to the report. The annual governance statement has been previously presented to SMT and therefore requires approval from Cabinet and the Audit Committee before being fed into our final accounts. It is proposed that the Cabinet agrees the annual governance statement 1920 and attached at Appendix A prior to the statement being signed by the Leader of the Council and the Chief Executive. The AGS will then be reported to the Audit Committee for review, and finally to its approval will accompany the 1920 accounts. Cabinet, you're asked to approve the recommendations contained in the covering report.
Thank you, Ray. Is that seconded?
Yeah, I'll second that, Leader.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any comments or questions on the report, or can we move to the vote? We'll move to the vote then. Again, I'll take silence as agreement. Thank you very much indeed. The next item on the agenda then is item 8, which is the representation on outside bodies 2020-2021. This has gone through the usual group leader consultation, and therefore I'd like to propose the nominations as per the report. Is that seconded, please?
Second that.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions or comments on that, or can we move to the vote? We'll move to the vote then. Again, I'll take silence as agreement. Thank you very much indeed. Then if we can move to item 9, which is the Local Growth Fund Strong Communities. I'll just remind members there is a confidential element in that report. If we do get into that, then we'll have to adjourn into private session. Hopefully that won't be necessary. Councillor David Wright.
Leader, this report confirms a decision taken through the strong leader process linked to how we've been able to secure funding from the March's LEP in relation to Local Growth Fund. There was a significant underspend in the fund within the LEP area, and local authorities within the area were asked to put in proposals that could step up to take that shortfall. That shortfall didn't come from obviously our area or indeed Shropshire, it was from the Herefordshire area. We submitted proposals within the specified deadline into a Stronger Communities package, and we were successful in securing resources through that package. I won't go into the financial details, as you say, because that's with the confidential element of the report. But our proposal was to bring back brownfield sites into use and also to stimulate the economy locally through activity through housing, purchasing land sites, and bringing employment opportunities forward within the borough. As part of that process, we have been purchasing land through, in particular, in the Station Quarter area, and the grant funding element has been used to purchase a site at the heart of that Station Quarter redevelopment proposal. We're aiming to redevelop the area between the station and the Telford Shopping Centre, so that it has a mixed use of office accommodation, new housing, potential short stop retail uses, so that it provides a really attractive area between the station and the town centre and connects those neighbourhoods within the wider town centre area. So this report relates to the purchase and land assembly in relation to those packages, and obviously if members want to go into further detail in relation to the amounts of resources, we would clearly have to move into private session. But I move the recommendations, and clearly you'll want to perhaps add something in terms of the strong leader decision.
Thank you, David. Is that seconded?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you, Richard. This is a strong leader decision that I made during the pandemic and the lockdown when we weren't meeting. It isn't something that I often use, the strong leader decision, so I do think it's best that decisions are made in public at these types of meetings. But what I have committed to do when I became leader was any strong decision that I made would then come back to the first available cabinet meeting, which is this. So there you are. Councillor Bill Tomlinson. I think you're on mute again, Bill, sorry. Sorry, Bill, we're having trouble hearing you. We'll probably have to come back to you outside the meeting, Bill. Sorry, we can't hear you. That has been moved, that has been seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much, and I'll call the meeting to an end. Thank you.